Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jayo Krishna Balaram Jayo Krishna Balaram Krishna Balaram Jayo Vrindavanam Jayo Radhesham Radhesham Lalita Vishaka Jayo Radhesham Jayo Gauranishai 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 Jayo Gauranishai Jayo Prabhupada Jayo Prabhupada Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada Jam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivaraj Vichari Ashtottara Sat Sri Srimad A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Jam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivaraj Vichari Ashtottara Sat Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj Ki Jai Anant Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai Panchakalpatharubhyasya Kripa Sindhubhyaiva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Swati Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Before we start, we will quickly recite Sri Krishna Leela Stava prayers by Sanatana Goswami, glorifying Srimad Bhagavatam. Sarva Shastra Piyusha Sarva Vedaika Satphala Sarva Siddhanta Ratnatya Sarva Lokaika Trikpada Sarva Bhagavata Prana Srimad Bhagavata Prabhu Kalida Vontida Ditya Sri Krishna Parivartita. O Srimad Bhagavatam, O nectar churned from the ocean of all Vedic scriptures, you are the most prominent transcendental fruit of the Vedas, and you are enriched with the jewels of all philosophical conclusions. You grant spiritual vision to all people of the world and the very life breath of Vaishnava devotees. O Lord, you are the sun which has arisen to dispel the darkness of Kali Yuga. Actually, you are Lord Krishna who has returned among us. Paramananda Patyaya Premavashaksharayate Sarvada Sarvasevyaya Sri Krishnaya Namostute. O Srimad Bhagavatam, I offer respectable obeisances unto you. By your recitation, one attains transcendental bliss because your syllables pour down pure love of God. You are to be served by everyone always, for you are an incarnation of Lord Krishna. Madekavando Matsangin Madguru Madmahadana Mannistaraka Madbhagya Madananda Namostute. O Srimad Bhagavatam, O my only friend, my companion and my teacher, O my great wealth and deliverer, O my good fortune and bliss, I offer respectable obeisances unto you. Asadu sadhuta dayini yatini chochata tara Anamucha katachinmam premahrit kantayospura. O Srimad Bhagavatam, O bestower of saintliness to the unsaintly, O uplifter of the fallen, O of the most fallen, please never leave me, accompanied by pure love of Krishna. Please manifest yourself in my throat and my heart and my throat. Nashtaprayeshu bhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavate uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naistiki. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Welcome everyone. I'm extremely sorry for yesterday. My internet was playing a lot and I don't know how it will take us today. So any remembrances from the last chapter? Yeah, we finished chapter 15. We were supposed to do 16 too, but we couldn't. Any remembrances from chapter 15? Some of the points. Anyone?
Hare Krishna Mataji. Basically, we were talking about, how King Prithu appeared, and how he
Yes.
was coronated by the priests and what was the situation exactly that was going on. And we, also talked about praising and
Mm,
pride, how it can get to our heads,
mm,
or how, it can help us in our devotional service as well. So, and we
right.
did learn this, that we are not supposed to keep the praise to ourselves, because it is because of the mercy of
Mm,
the Guru and the Vaishnavas and Krishna and everyone that we are able to perform any kind of devotional service. So instead of keeping it to ourselves, we should pass it on and be humble ourselves. But we should not be miserly while praising devotees as well.
mm. Right, very nice. Thank you, Mataji. So you gave a gist of everything that happened in chapter 15. Any other points anyone wants to add on? Um, Nothing striking from chapter 15? Or the previous classes? What one feature of Canto? Why is he so special? Maitreya Muni explains that he is the first king. You know why he's first king? Did you discuss that? He's called Adi Raja. There were so many kings before. Why is he called the Adi Raja? He is the first king.
Hare Krishna Mataji,
Hare Krishna.
because he planned Hare Krishna. Am I audible,
Yes,
Mataji?
Mataji. Yes,
Because
you are audible.
he's the first king who planned the world, equalized the earth, mountains, and divided into seven continents and all that.
Yeah. And also, how is Prithu very special? Why is Prithu very special?
Because Mataji is the partial representative or partial incarnation of Supreme Personality of God, and he has all the, not all, but he has few marks which, establish that Prithu Maharaj is the partial representative of the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Yeah, and Prabhupada very clearly mentions in the purport that he is the Shaktyavesh avatar. So he is the ruling potency of the Lord Vishnu. That's why he's very special. So today we are going to the chapter 16. It's a very small chapter, but also very significant in terms of the qualities that that Prithu has, and also the prediction of the future activities. So this chapter has 5 sections. 1 to the 3 verses gives the glorification of Prithu. 4 to the 5, he talks about how Prithu upholds the Dharma. 6 to the 14, he is compared to different kinds of demigods, how he is equivalent to those demigods. And 15 to 9, various other qualities of Prithu Maharaj were discussed. And the last section, 20 to 21, is the prediction of his future activities. So we will recite the verse, and maybe some of you can help reading the translations would be nice. I'll start with the first one and then we will take turns. Verse 1. The great sage Maitreya continued. While King Prithu thus spoke, the humility of his nectarian speeches pleased the reciters very much. Then again they continued to praise the king highly with exalted prayers, as they had been instructed by the great sages. As we remember from the last chapter, Prithu Maharaj was very heavy with the Magda Sutta, the reciters saying that, you shouldn't be praising me. I haven't been displaying any of those qualities. You should not be praising me. Instead, you should be discussing the Supreme Personality of Godhead's pastime and activities. But Maitreya Muni is saying that, these praisers, these reciters, the Sutta, Magda, and Vandi, they continue to praise him again because they are inspired by the sages. And Prabhupada also mentions this Muni Chodita, indicates instructions received from the great sages and saintly persons. Because they received the instructions from the sages, they even surpassed King Prithu's request. So Prabhupada writes here saying, although Maharaj Prithu was simply enthroned on the royal seat and was not at that time exhibiting his godly powers, the reciters like Sutta, Magda, and Vandi understood King Prithu was an incarnation of God. They could understand this by the instructions given by the great sages and learned Brahmanas. We have to understand the incarnations of God by instructions of authorized persons. We cannot manufacture a God by our own concoctions. As stated by Narottam Das Thakur, Sadhu Shastra Guru, one has to test all the spiritual matters according to the instructions of saintly persons, scriptures, and spiritual master. So this is the triangle that we will be always following in our life. So how do we know someone is authorized? We check, we do this three checkpoint, Sadhu, Guru, and Shastra. And all the three should come to the same conclusion. Then only we accept someone is bona fide, someone is authorized. So this rule applies for accepting any bona fide spiritual master, accepting anyone as God, or making any major decisions in our life. This 3-point check has to go. And Prabhupada continues, the spiritual master is one who follows the instruction of his predecessors, namely the sadhus or saintly persons. A bona fide spiritual master does not mention anything not mentioned in authorized scriptures. Ordinary people have to follow the instructions of sadhu, shastra, and guru. Those statements made in the shastras and those made by the bona fide sadhu or guru cannot differ from one another. So they should all align together. And if it's not aligning, then we have to go back and check so that we are understanding in the proper mood. And Prabhupada continues, reciters like the Sutta and Magda were confidentially aware that King Prithu was an incarnation of personality of Godhead. Although the king denied such a praise because he was not at that time exhibiting his godly qualities, the reciter did not stop praising him. Rather, they were pleased with the king, who actually an incarnation of God, was so humble and delightful in his dealings with devotees. In this connection, we may note that previously, 4:15:21, it was mentioned that King Prithu was smiling, but was in a pleasant mood while speaking to the reciters. Thus, we have to learn from the Lord or his incarnation how to become gentle and humble. The king's behavior was very pleasing to the reciters, and consequently, the reciters continued their praise and even foretold the king's future activities had they been instructed by the sadhus and sages. So these three, Suta, Magda, and Vandi, they are acting as MC, for the entire, at the coronation, they're acting as MC, and then they're glorifying because they got instructions from the sages. Verse 2. Can anyone recite?
Yes, Mataji. Translation. The reciters continued, Dear King, you are a direct incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Vishnu, and by his causeless mercy you have descended to this earth. Therefore, it is not possible for us to actually glorify your exalted activities. Although you have appeared through the body of King Vrina, even great orators and speakers like Lord Brahma and other demigods cannot exactly describe the glorious activities of your lordship.
Yeah. So here again, Prabhupada is saying that, Mayaya, that means by your causeless mercy. Then Prabhupada goes and explains about how there are two kinds of Maya exist. One is the Yoga Maya and one is the Mahamaya. Now, this is from the Bhagavad Gita. Krishna says that he appears through his internal potency, Atma Mayaya. Can anyone think of the verse? Which verse is Prabhupada quoting here? Which verse of the Bhagavad Gita is Prabhupada quoting? The Lord appears to his internal potencies. Atma Mayaya. I appear. You can go through Bhagavad Gita if you want to. This is any trials? Anyone want to try? This is from the 4th chapter. You can see the first verses of the 4th chapter. One of the verses Krishna says that, I appear through my internal potency.
Mataji, it's 4.6.
Yes. What is the translation? Can you recite, Mataji?
Yes, Mataji. It says, although I am unborn and my transcendental body never deteriorates, and although I am the Lord of all living entities, I still appear in every millennial in my original transcendental form.
So yeah, Prabhupada is mentioning. Thank you, Mataji. So Krishna says that, in every millennium, he appears in his original, through his internal potency, in his original form. And here Prabhupada gives an explanation how that Mayavadis always misunderstand the appearance of the Lord. But actually the Lord appears and he's independent. He's independent. He can appear anywhere, everywhere, and he appears through his internal potency. And Prabhupada also gives examples of the fish incarnation, Matsya Avatar or Varaha Avatar. So although the Lord appears in the form of Matsya or Matsya or Varaha, he still is complete. And he appears through his internal potency, so there is no change in him. And if you go to the last paragraph of the purport, Prabhupada explains, by glorifying the Lord with exalted voices, one becomes purified. Why we have to always offer glorification or prayers to the Lord? Because it will help us to become purified. Although we are unable to offer prayers to the Lord in an adequate fashion, our duty is to make an attempt in order to purify ourselves. It is not that we should stop our glorification because demigods like Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva cannot adequately glorify the Lord. Rather, as stated by Prahlad Maharaj, everyone should glorify the Lord according to his own ability. If we are serious and sincere devotees, the Lord will give us the intelligence to offer prayers properly. So, one is we should always offer glorification and prayers to the Lord because it purifies us. Even though we are not qualified, still we should make this attempt. And the best way is also to recite the prayers of the acharyas. By reciting the prayers of the acharyas, we will imbibe their mood. And the Prabhupada is telling that, quoting Prahlad Maharaj, how one has to glorify according to their ability. So then what happens? Then the Lord will give intelligence. If you remember the few classes before, the Dhruva Maharaj, he wanted to say something, but he was not able to say. Then what did the Lord do? He touched Dhruva Maharaj's head with the transcendental conch shell. And as soon as he was touched, the flow of the prayers. So maybe the Lord might not give us he may not come and touch with his conch shell, but still he will give the intelligence from within, Dadami Buddhi Yogam. So from within, he will inspire us to recite the prayers. Verse 3. Anyone wants to read the translation?
Krishna Mataji. Although
Yes, Prabhu.
we are unable to glorify you adequately, we nonetheless have a transcendental taste for glorifying your activities. We shall try to glorify you according to the instructions received from authoritative sages and scholars. Whatever we speak, however, is always inadequate and very insignificant. Dear King, because you are a direct incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, all your activities are liberal and ever laudable.
Yeah, thank you, Prabhu. Yeah, so here again, the reciters, they are also expressing their inability to glorify the Lord. But what are they saying? We are doing because we have the instructions of the authoritative sages. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, the sages actually entered the hearts of these reciters and they were actually reciting. So Prabhupada also, this purport is very, very instructive for us. Prabhupada writes, however expert one may be, he can never describe the glories of Lord adequately. Nonetheless, those engaged in glorifying the activities of the Lord should try to do as far as possible. Such an attempt will please the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Lord Chaitanya has advised all his followers to go everywhere and preach the message of Lord Krishna. Since this message is essentially Bhagavad Gita, the preacher's duty is to study Bhagavad Gita as it is, understood by the disciplic succession and explained by the great sages and learned devotees. One should speak to the general populace in accordance to one's predecessors, Sadhu, Guru, and Shastras. This simple process is the easiest method by which one can glorify the Lord. So Prabhupada is making it much more easier. How can we glorify the Lord? Just by reciting the Srimad Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam to the general populace. Go everywhere and just recite it. That means preach the message of Krishna. Devotional service, however, is the real method, for by devotional service, one can satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead with just a few words. Without devotional service, volumes of books cannot satisfy the Lord. Even though preachers of Krishna conscious movement may be unable to describe the glories of the Lord, they can nonetheless go everywhere and request people to chant Hare Krishna. So even if someone is not very proficient with the Bhagavad Gita, they still can go and ask people to chant Hare Krishna. So the two ways that we can always glorify the Supreme Personality of Godhead is by preaching the message of Bhagavad Gita and by asking people to chant Hare Krishna. 4. Now I think the section will be changing. Yes. So 4 and 5 will be talking about how Prithu is the upholder of the Dharma. Anyone can read the translation?
Translation. Verse 4. The king, Maharaj Prithu, is the best among those who are following religious principles. As such, he will engage everyone in the pursuit of religious principles and give those principles all protection. He will also be a great chastiser to the irreligious and atheistic.
Yeah. So here Prithu's how he's the upholder of the Dharma. And then Prabhupada writes, it is the duty of governmental head to see that people strictly follow a religious life. So any kind of position that brings responsibility. And then Prabhupada is talking about how the Kali Yuga, the Kali Yuga governmental heads, they're not interested in the welfare of the people, but they're just nothing but rogues and thieves. And at the end of the purport, Prabhupada again says, the rogues exact exact taxes from the citizens for their sense enjoyment. And in the future, people will be so much harassed that according to Srimad Bhagavatam, which will be described in the Canto 12, they will flee from their homes and country and take shelter in the forest. However, in the Kali Yuga, democratic government can be captured by Krishna conscious people. If this can be done, the general populace can be made very happy. So Prabhupada is saying that, when devotees take up the roles in the government, then there will be a future of happiness for the people. 5. Can anyone read the translation?
The king alone, in his own body, will be able in due course of time to maintain all living entities and keep them in a pleasant condition by manifesting himself as different demigods to perform various departmental activities. Thus, he will maintain the upper planetary system by inducing the populace to perform Vedic sacrifices. In due course of time, he will also maintain this earthly planet by discharging proper rainfall.
So Prithu, the speciality of his, one of the very special characters that Prithu is exhibiting here is that, first of all, he's the maintainer of all the living entities, and he'll make sure that everyone in his rule, in his reign, will be very happy. So upper planetary systems, the populace in the upper planetary system, they will be pleased because there will be always a conductance of the Vedic sacrifice. When there is Vedic sacrifice, the demigods are getting their share of the sacrifice, and so they're pleased. And on the earth, he's also making sure that there is adequate rainfall. And when there is adequate rainfall, what happens? The grains are grown and there is sufficient food crops. And then the population will be happy and prosperous. So Prabhupada is quoting from the Bhagavad Gita, 3rd chapter. Annad bhavanti bhutani pajjanya anna sambhava yagnad bhavanti pajjanyo yagna karma sambhutava. So all the living bodies sustain on food grains which are produced from rains, and rains are produced by the performance of yagna. And yagna is born of prescribed duties. So until the people are doing their prescribed duties, there will be no Vedic sacrifices. And when there are Vedic sacrifices, the demigods are happy. When the demigods are happy, there will be adequate rainfall, and then there is ample food production. So Prithu is the maintainer. And how is he maintaining? He's maintaining that this cycle is going very nicely. He will make sure that this cycle will be going very nicely. And Prabhupada also says, in Kali Yuga, however, in the so-called secular state, the executive branch of government is in charge of the so-called kings and presidents, who are all fools and rascals, ignorant of the intricacies of nature's cause and ignorant of principles of sacrifice. Such rascals simply make various plans which always fail, and people subsequently suffer disturbances. To counteract this situation, Shastras advise, Hare Nama Hare Nama Hare Nama Eva Kevala, Nasteva 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 Gatir Anyata. Thus, in order to counteract this unfortunate situation in government, the general populace is advised to chant Mahamantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So Prabhupada is saying that, okay, this is what the Prithu is doing, but how can we get back to that prosperation? There's something. So that is by inducing people to chant Hare Krishna Mahamantra, inducing people to engage in the Sankirtan Yagna. And only by this, there will be, the demigods will be pleased, the Supreme Personality of the Godhead will be pleased, and there will be peace and prosperity. 6. What happened? Can anyone read?
Yes, Mataji. The king,
Yes.
This king Prithu will be as powerful as the sun god, and just as the sun god equally distributes his sunshine to everyone, King Prithu will distribute his mercy equally. Similarly, just as the sun god evaporates water for 8 months and during the rainy season returns it profusely, this king will also exact taxes from the citizens and return these monies in the time of need.
Yeah, from here to next 8 verses, 6 to the 14, compared to different demigods, and then how different demigods are acting, Prithu will also be acting. In this uh, particular verse, this process of tax exaction, how he will be collecting the taxes, and when the time of need and for the gone like the projects, he will be using the taxes. And then Prabhupada says that, in the Kali Yuga, people take, the government officers just take the taxes for their own personal enjoyment. But whereas Prithu was not like that. He was collecting the taxes, but at the time of need, he was giving back, just like the sun. 7.
The King Prathu will be very, very kind to all the citizens, even though a poor person may trample over the king's head by violating the rules and regulation. The king, out of his causeless mercy, will be forgetful and forgiving. As a protector of the world, he will be as tolerant as the earth itself.
So here Prithu is compared to Mother Earth. How is he Mother Earth? First of all, he is very kind. And Mother Earth, like, we are walking and there's so much trample going on, so much destruction, but still she's very tolerant and forgiving. She's providing all the resources to us. She's always there, very tolerantly. So similarly, King Prithu, he is also very forgiving and tolerant to even people who are not able to follow rules and regulations. So Prabhupada writes, for even though some citizens might violate the rules and regulations of the state, he would still be tolerant and maintain them fruits and grains. So he's making sure that everyone will be taken care. And at the end of the purport, Prabhupada says, eventually the state will not be able to collect taxes and consequently will not be able to meet its huge, sorry, I should read a little bit more up, sorry. However, in Kali Yuga, the kings and heads of the state enjoy life at the cost of taxes exacted from the citizens. Such unfair taxation makes people dishonest, and people try to hide their income in so many ways. Eventually, the state will not be able to collect taxes and consequently will not be able to meet its huge military and administrative expenses. Everything will collapse and there will be chaos and disturbance all over the state. So this is a very useful point we can use in our preaching. We can show to people that, if someone is not God conscious, this is the effect. You see, you take any country, this is what is happening in any country. They're trying to manage their military with so much money, but the entire country is collapsing because of the unemployment, poverty, and shortage of food. And this is described in the pages of the Bhagavatam. What should be the role of a king? What should be the role of the citizens? And how the taxation should be conducted. 9. Did we skip first? Oh, 8. Sorry, 8.
When there is no rainfall and the citizens are in great danger due to scarcity of water, this royal personality of Godhead will be able to supply rains exactly like the heavenly King Indra. Thus, he will very easily be able to protect the citizens from drought.
Here, King Prithu is compared to King Indra. So, how King Indra is in charge of rain, distributing water. So, if he fails, King Prithu will take that charge and then he will make sure that, there is sufficient supply of rain. And then Prabhupada gives the example of how Krishna also exhibited his superhumanly powers, showing Indra by holding up the Govardhan hill, and then he was known as Govardhan Dhari. 9.
This king, Prathu Maharaj, by virtue of his affectionate glances and beautiful moon-like face, which is always smiling with great affection for the citizens, will enhance everyone's peaceful life.
So just by his, the gestures, he will make everyone very peaceful. 10. The reciters continue. Yes,
Reading,
Mataji.
Mataji, reading.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
The reciters continue. No one will be able to understand the policies the king will follow. His activities will be so very confidential, and it will not be possible for anyone to know how he will make every activity successful. His treasury will always remain unknown to everyone. How will he will be the reservoir of unlimited glories and good qualities, and his position will be maintained and covered just as Varuna, the deity of seas, is covered all around by water.
So here Prithu is, thank you Mataji. Here Prithu is compared to Varuna. If you go to the second paragraph, Prabhupada writes, the word Upagupta Vittaha is very significant in this verse. It indicates that no one would know the extent of riches King Prithu would confidentially keep. The idea is that not only the king, but everyone should keep his hard-earned money confidentially and secretly, so that in due course of time, the money can be spent for good practical purposes. In Kali Yuga, however, the king or the government has no well-protected treasury, and the only means of circulation is currency notes made of paper. Thus, in times of distress, the government artificially inflates the currency by simply printing papers, and this artificially raises the prices of commodities, and the general condition of the citizens become very precarious. Thus, keeping one's money very secretly is an old practice, for we find this practice present even during the reign of Maharaj Prithu. Just as a king has right to keep his treasury confidential and secret, people should also keep their individual earnings a secret. There's no fault in such dealings. The main point is that everyone should be trained in the system of Varnashrama Dharma so that the money is spent only for good causes and nothing else. But today is an opposite of this situation. People like to show off their money. People like to spend so much money on unnecessarily just to show off. But this is a principle that if we can take and apply, that we should learn to hold the secret, how much money, because it should be used only for good and practical purposes, not to show off. 11.
King Prithu
Anyone?
was born of the dead body of King Vena. As fire is produced from areni wood, thus King Prithu will always remain just like fire, and his enemies will not be able to approach him. Indeed, he will be unbearable to his enemies, for although staying very near him, they will never be able to approach him, but will have to remain as if far away. No one will be able to overcome the strength of King Prithu.
So here King Prithu is compared to fire. So arani wood is like a small wood, and if you rub it, you don't need matchbox, lighters, you just rub it, and by the friction itself, they will light it up. So Prithu is like that. So although Prithu was born out of King Vena, the dead body of the King Vena, but still he has this quality of fire. That means he's pure. And he's also not approachable by his enemies, because everyone is afraid of him. 12.
Text 12. King Prithu will be able to see all the internal and external activities of every one of his citizens. Still, no one will be able to know his systems of espionage, and he will himself remain neutral regarding all matters of glorification or vilification paid to him. He will be exactly like air, the life force within the body, which is exhibited internally and externally, but is always neutral to all affairs.
So here King Prithu will be like a Vayu. He remains very neutral, whether it's time of glorification or at the time of insult. And he's always, in all the activities, he's remaining neutral. Someone's hand was raised. Rajiv Prabhu, someone? I quickly missed. Someone's hand was raised. 13.
Since this king will always remain on the path of the piety, he will be neutral to both his son and the son of his enemy. If the son of his enemy is not punishable, he will not punish him. But if his own son is punishable, he will immediately punish him.
So Prabhupada writes saying that these are the characteristics of an impartial ruler. It is the duty of a ruler to punish the criminal and give protection to the innocent. King Prithu was so neutral that if his own son were punishable, he would not hesitate to punish him. On the other hand, if the son of his enemy were innocent, he would not engage in some intrigue in order to punish him. So these are some of the qualities of King Prithu. 14.
Just as the sun god expands his shining rays up to the Arctic region without impedance, the influence of King Prithu will cover all tracts of land up to Arctic region and will remain undisturbed as long as he lives.
Yes. So Prabhupada writes that no one can check the influence and the reign of King Prithu. Which would remain undisturbed as long as he lived. It's not for 1 year or 2 years. For the time he was there ruling, no one were able to check the influence. Now we are switching to the next section, 15 to the 19. We will still further discuss King Prithu's more qualities. 15.
This king will please everyone by his practical activities, and all of his citizens will remain very satisfied. Because of this, the citizen will take great satisfaction in accepting him as their ruling king.
Yes. 16.
The king will be firmly determined and always situated in truth. He will be a lover of the Brahmanical culture and will render Lord service to old men and give shelter to all surrendered souls. Giving respect to all, he will always be merciful to the poor and innocent.
Yeah, so here Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that these are the three qualities which are very highlighting in Prithu's character. One is Dridhavrataha, that is firmly determined. And second is Satya Sandaha. That means he's always situated in truth. That means he is always sticking to the truth in all circumstances. And also he is Vriddha Sevaka. He always renders service to the old. But old doesn't mean only to the age, but also to the people who are wise, older in their wisdom, in the knowledge. So Prabhupada also writes in the purport, the word Vriddha Sevaka is very significant. Vriddha means old man. There are two kinds of old men. One is old by the age, another old is by knowledge. The Sanskrit word indicates that one can be older by the advancement of knowledge. King Prithu was respectful to Brahmanas and he protected them. He also protected persons advanced in age. Whatever the king would decide to do, no one would be able to stop. That is called Dridha Sankalpa or Dridha Vrataha. 17.
The king will respect all women as if they were his own mother, and he will treat his own wife as the other half of his body. He will be just like an affectionate father to his citizens, and he will treat himself as the most obedient servant of the devotees, who always preach the glories of the Lord.
So he's always respectful to all the women and he's treating everyone other than his wife as mother. And Prabhupada is emphasizing this in the purport, saying, a learned man treats all women except his wife as his mother, looks on others' property as garbage in the street, and treat others as he would treat his own self. These are the symptoms of learned person as described by Chanakya Pandit. This should be the standard of education. Education does not mean having academic degrees only. One should execute what he has learned in his personal life. These learned characteristics are verily manifest in the life of King Prithu. So if someone says that they're educated, then we can see if they are able to apply these three qualities, and also whatever they're learning, if they're able to apply, then they're said to be educated. So bhakti is very special because we have gyan, and then when we apply, it becomes the vigyan. When applied, it becomes vigyan because it will give us the realizations of that knowledge. 18.
The king will consider all embodied living entities as dear as his own self, and he will always be increasing the pleasures of his friends. He will intimately associate with liberated persons, and he will be a chastising hand to all impious persons.
Yeah, here the king is exhibiting one important quality, saying that Mukta Sangha Prasango Yam. So he wants to associate with people who are highly advanced, who are more Krishna conscious. We will see in the later chapters also, when the four Kumaras come, how eager he is there to welcome the four Kumaras and want to take their association and instructions from the four Kumaras. 19.
This king is the master of the three worlds, and he is directly empowered by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is without change, and he is an incarnation of the Supreme, known as Sakshya Avatar. Being a liberated soul and a completely learned, he sees all the material varieties as meaningless because their basic principle is nescience.
Yeah, so one of the qualities that he is Sakshat Bhagavan because he's said that it is Atma Kalyana Tirnaha. So the super soul, he is the expansion of the partial plenary expansion of the super soul. So and then Prabhupada says that that's why he is Sakchavesh avatar. And because of that quality, he is able to see all the material varieties as meaningless because in the material world they have how do you say they have no place. This is not the reality. They were able to see the difference between the illusion and the reality. Then Prabhupada also talks about in the second paragraph, the word kutastha means without change is also very significant. There are two kinds of living entities. One is Nitya Mukta and one is Nitya Bandha. So who is Nitya Mukta? The living entity represents the super soul as its expansion. Nityo Nityanam Chaitano Chaitanasta. Thus the Nitya Mukta living entity knows that he is the expansion of Supreme Nitya, the eternal Supreme Personality of Godhead. Being in such position, he sees material world with a different vision. The living entity who is Nitya Baddha or eternally conditioned sees the material varieties as being actually different from one another. So Prabhupada is also making it very clear, saying that Nitya Mukta people, they understand that they're part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, and they understand that, this is one of the energies of the Lord, the material world, and so they don't make so much differentiation. Whereas Nitya Baddha, they understand that they are eternally conditioned, so they see that there is a lot of variety on the material platform, but actually this is all none but just the illusion. It's illusion in the sense that because we are trying to identify as different, each variety as different. Whereas the Nitya Mukta people, they can understand that this is just an energy of the Lord that is manifested. And if you go further, Prabhupada writes in the last few lines of the purport, being a Satyavesh avatar, empowered by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Prithu Maharaj did not change his spiritual position. Consequently, there was no possible of his viewing the material world as reality, because he's endowed with the knowledge, so he's able to see the things as they are. Now we are changing to the last section. This is verses from 22 to 21, where the reciters are predicting the future activities of the King Prithu. 20. Sorry.
The king, being uniquely powerful and heroic, he will have no competitor. He will travel around the globe on his victorious chariot. chariot, holding his invincible bow in his hand and appearing exactly like the sun, which rotates in its own orbit from the south.
So here King Prithu will be traveling, and then there will be no competitor for him. So Prabhupada also says another significant word in this verse is Naradeva. So he's the ideal and qualified king. As described in the previous verses, the qualified king, be he the King Prithu or any other king who rules over the state as an ideal king, should be understood to be God in human form. According to Vedic culture, the king is honored as Supreme Personality of Godhead because he represents Narayan, who also gives protection to citizens. He is therefore Natha or proprietor. Even Sanatana Goswami gave respect to Nawab Hussain Shah as Naradeva, although the Nawab was Mohammedan. A king or a governmental head must therefore be so competent to rule over the state that the citizens will worship him as God in human form. That is the perfectional stage for the head of any government or state. So how he will be so glorious king, and then he will have no competitor. This is the future prediction of the reciters. 21.
And the king travels all over the world. Other kings as well as the demigods will offer him all kinds of presentations. Their queen will also consider him the original king, who carries in his hands the emblems of club and disc, and will sing of his fame, for he will be as reputable as the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
In the verse, if you can see, there's a word used, Adirajan. That is, he is the original king. Why is he original king? Prabhupada explains. The word Adirajan means original king. The original king is Narayan, Lord Vishnu, because he's the maintainer, right? So he's the maintainer of the living entities. People do not know that the original king or Narayan is the actual protector of the living entities. As confirmed in the Vedas, Eko Bahunam Yo Vidyate Kaman. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is maintaining all living entities. So because the king is the representation of the Supreme Lord, that's why King Prithu is known here as Naradeva, because he is bringing the exact the desires of the Lord to be fulfilled. That's why he's the Adirajam. He's the first king. And then in the last lines, Prabhupada writes, Prithu Maharaj was actually carrying with him the reputation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, because he was actually reigning over the world in that capacity. That's why he's known as Adirajam. No one else is called Adirajam because he was carrying the potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the ruling potency. 22.
This king, this protector of the citizen, is an extraordinary king and is equal to the Prajapati demigods. For the living facility of all citizens, he will milk the earth, which is like a cow. Not only that, but he will level the surface of the earth with the pointed ends of his bow, breaking all the hills exactly as King Indra, the heavenly king, breaks mountains with his powerful thunderbolt.
So this is another pastime which will be unfolding very soon, that, he will be milking the Mother Earth in the form of who has taken the shape of a cow. And then he will also level up the
पूजा दीदी
surface
एक
of
मिनट देख दो कि कौन है
the earth.
देख दो
So we will see that in the chapters 17 and 18. 23.
When the lion travels in the forest with its tail turned upward, all menial animals hide themselves. Similarly, when King Prithu will travel over his kingdom and vibrate the strings of his bow, which is made of horns of goats and bulls, and is irresistible in battle, all demoniac rogues and thieves will hide themselves in all directions.
So he will be a terrifying king, a terrifying king to whom? To the rogues and the thieves. So no one will be able to come because he's like a Singha Guru. So who is a Singha Guru in our tradition? Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur is known as Singha Guru because he was never allowing any of the Apasampradayas to rule over. So we will see, we will discuss that when Indra will be taking different sannyasis and how there is, different Apasampradayas will be coming out. We will discuss there more. 24.
At the source of the river Saraswati, this king will perform 100 sacrifices known as Ashwamedha. In the course of the last sacrifice, the heavenly planet Indra will steal the sacrificial horse.
So apart from, being a ruler, he was also, he's engaged in different sacrifices. And once he took a vow to complete 100 sacrifices, 100 Ashwamedha Yajna. And in the last sacrifice, Lord Indra troubled him by always stealing the sacrificial horse. 25.
The king Prithu will meet Sanat Kumar, one of the 4 Kumaras, in the garden of his palace compound. The king will worship him with devotion and will be fortunate to receive instructions by which one can enjoy transcendental bliss.
So here Prithu is showing how to take instructions from the devotees and how he's teaching people by his example that one has to take association of the saintly persons. Prabhupada also writes this in the purport saying, although King Prithu was an incarnation of Vishnu, he nonetheless taught the people in his kingdom and to take instructions from spiritual master who represents the disciplic succession. Thus one can become fortunate and enjoy blissful life even within this material world. In this verse, the verb vidhanti is sometimes taken to mean understanding. Thus, when a person understands Brahman or supreme source of everything, he enjoys a blissful life. Although King Prithu knows he is completely equipped with the knowledge of Brahman and the Parabrahma, but still he accepts the 4 Kumaras, Sanat Kumar as a spiritual master, and he takes instructions. 26.
In this way, when the chivalrous activities of the King Prathu come to be known to the people in general, King Prathu will always hear about himself and his unique, powerful activities.
Yes, Prabhupada writes, to artificially advertise oneself and thus enjoy a so-called reputation is a kind of conceit. Prithu Maharaj was famous amongst the people because of his chivalrous activities. He did not have to advertise himself artificially. One's reputation cannot be covered. So we no need to run after the reputation because when we perform glorious activities, reputation will come. That's what Prithu Maharaj is explaining. 27, the last verse of this chapter. Yeah.
No one will be able to disobey the orders of Prithu Maharaj. After conquering the world, he will completely eradicate the threefold miseries of the citizens. Then he will be recognized all over the world. At that time, both the Suras and Asuras will undoubtedly glorify his magnanimous activities.
So everyone will take an opportunity to glorify Prithu Maharaj. And here Prabhupada says, as soon as there are some discrepancies in the maintenance of Varnashram system, the emperor would immediately take charge of the small states. So he's giving everyone a chance to rule, but at the same time, whenever there is a disturbance in the Varnashram system, the Prithu Maharaj used to take over the states and he would rule. And the last paragraph of the purport, Prabhupada says, the word Ukta Tita Loka Salya indicates that Maharaj Prithu completely uprooted all the miseries of his citizens. The word Salya means piercing thorns. There are many kinds of miserable thorns that pierce the citizens of a state, but all the competent rulers, even up to the reign of Maharaj Yudhishthira, uprooted all the miserable conditions of the citizens. It is stated that during the reign of Maharaj Yudhishthira, there did not even exist severe cold or scorching heat, nor did the citizens suffer from any kind of mental anxiety. This is the standard of good government. So Maharaj Yudhishthir is like just 5,000 years ago, not far away. Such a peaceful and prosperous government devoid of anxiety was established by Prithu Maharaj. Thus, the inhabitants of both saintly and demoniac planets were all engaged in glorifying the activities of Maharaj Prithu. Persons or nations anxious to spread their influence all over the world should consider this point. If one is able to eradicate completely the threefold miseries of the citizens, he should aspire to rule the world. One should not aspire to rule for any political or diplomatic consideration. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports of the 4th canto, 16th chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled The Praise of King Prithu by the Professional Reciters. So are there any questions or comments or reflections from this chapter? Yes, Jagat Mata Sachivat.
Hare Krishna Mataji. Mataji, all the kings before Prithu Maharaj, except the King Vena, they're all good kings, like Sambhav, Dhruv Maharaj, and all that. But why Prithu Maharaj is so glorified, and he has done so many management things. Why the previous king? Why the previous kings have not done all these things? And does that Maharaj Vain created so much chaos in the society that Prithu Maharaj have to re-establish everything? It's like that.
Yes, and also because he is known as Adiraja, because you see, he is specially empowered by the Supreme Personality of Godhead to rule. He has this ruling potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is why he is known as Adiraja. That's why he takes up the special, role, because he is an expansion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Whereas the other kings, they're also equally capable. However, they are not carrying so many qualities of the Lord himself. Right? So they did their best, undoubtedly. But Prithu was glorified because he was able to, you will see in the upcoming pastimes, how he will be, milking the cow, the Mother Earth, then how he will be ready to perform 100 Ashwamedha Yajnas. And, all these activities are very, very significant, showing that, the potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Sakta Vesh Avatar, the people, they are really empowered. You take in the case of Srila Prabhupada also. Srila Prabhupada had the same order as what his god brothers had, right? They were instructed to go out and preach the message of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And, but Srila Prabhupada is specially empowered. He went at the age of 69, he went to all the countries, all alone, without any support. And he established Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. And this is also the prediction of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. So these are very special souls. They come to establish the potency and the message of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That's why King Prithu is very special. We can see just in this by his activities itself.
Yes, Mataji, but just as you quoted the example of Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada has done so many amazing things to our society, but we can't avoid his struggle. He has so much struggle also.
Yeah, because Prabhupada, we are seeing his determination, right? Yes, Prabhupada struggled, but his determination was, nothing could stop him. Nothing has stopped him. But if something comes to me, you say something happens in my service, I will say, okay, thank you, bye-bye. I am not interested. This is what I will say. But if someone says something wrong to me, I don't have tolerance, I don't have patience, I don't know how to deal with them. I just say, I don't want devotional service. But Prabhupada, you can go to a place even if you don't know. You can go to a place even, what the country will be like. you don't have money, at the old age, you're traveling to other countries, and you don't know whether the audience will be receiving the message or not. At least if you have an assurance that, I'll go do a program. Say, for example, they ask me to teach this class. I know that there will be audience here. Someone will be listening to me. So that's why I will accept it, right? But Prabhupada didn't even know about all these things. But Prabhupada went. Just why? Because Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur has instructed him. So this is actually a glorification of Srila Prabhupada. Like, he's super empowered. Although he's empowered, he never showed that he was empowered. He was always giving credit back to his spiritual master. And then if you read the preface of Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada says, even if one becomes a pure devotee, the whole work becomes very successful. My goodness. You write the entire Bhagavad Gita, the word-to-word meaning, translations and purports, and you have already established the movement, you have disciples, but still you're saying, if one person becomes a pure devotee, my work will be regarded as successful. So it's such a deep humility, right? They're empowered. He knows that he's empowered, but still there's a deep humility. He's thinking that he is only an instrument in the hands of his spiritual master. So Prithu is also going to show, he's going to show many, many wonderful activities. But again, he understands that this is all coming from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Yeah. Thank you. I hope. So we'll take 10 minutes break and then come back and we'll continue with chapter 17. Is that okay? So 10 minutes break. Thank you. So we can continue, Prabhu. Yes, thank you. Also, in question to Mataji's question, I was also thinking that, Prithu Maharaj is born to rule. He was born for that only purpose, to rule. So that's why also he's Adi Raja, and all carries a special quality called Ishita. That means that no one can deny his rule. This is described in one of the verses also, that no one is able to overcome his words. And this is one of the qualities that Krishna will also exhibit, that if Krishna says, that will happen. Similar is Prithu Maharaj. If he says, if he wanted something, and no one can deny it. So that's why also he is Adi Raja, although there are many other kings. So we are opening up a new chapter, and before that, my sincere apologies. The last chapter, the prediction of the future activities, I said from 20 to 21, but it is 20 to 27. The last section is from 20th verse to 27. I wrote mistake. So for the 4th canto, 17th chapter, Maharaj Prithu becomes angry at earth. So this has 6 sections, no, 5 sections. First section is 1 to 8 verses. It discusses about the Vidura's questions. 9 to the 17th verses, you will see King Prithu chases the Mother Earth in the form of a cow. 18 to 21, the Mother Earth will give reasons why she should not be killed. 20 to 27, he will be giving counter arguments. And 28 to 36 will be Mother Earth's prayers. But the actual milking of the Mother Earth will happen in the next chapter, which is chapter 18. So start with the verse 1.
The great sage. Yeah, please.
Yes. Thank you, Prabhu. Continue, Prabhu.
The great sage Maitreya continued. In this way, the reciters who were glorifying Maharaj Prithu readily described his qualities and chivalrous activities. At the end, Maharaj Prithu offered them various presentations with all due respect and worshipped them adequately.
So happened, and then the reciters glorified King Prithu. And how did Prithu Maharaj reciprocate? He reciprocated by giving them presents with respect, with words, and he showed affection. So by doing all these things, what happens? We make people happy and we will bring people closer to us. So Prithu is doing that. Verse 2.
King Prithu thus satisfied and offered all respect to all the leaders of Brahmanas and other castes, to his servants, to his ministers, and to the priests, citizens, general countrymen, people from other communities, admirers, and others. And thus they all became happy.
So Prithu is showing that he was offering respects to all people, not just